my name is Nollaig Heffernan and I am going to discuss how to improve your approach to employment and as a result improve your staff retention. So when we look at a business, in a dairy business, we see that it's a triadic relationship. We've got cows, system and people. And of course, when you start out in your business, the loading is different to how it is when you're at a point of employing somebody. So we start out in our business, let's say this is the pie that represents the dairy business, and we can see that we've got a proportion that's for staff, so it's quite small, our staff proportion, and the rest is going to be maybe cows here and system. Okay, so we've got a lot of work to put in cows and system in order to have a robust business, because of course we can't employ people if we haven't a business that's sustainable and earning enough to be able to employ people. As you become extremely proficient with your cows and your system, you begin to look at the idea of bringing new people into your system and adding on more, particularly if you're in expansion or you want to change your own particular role in that business. And so we see that the pie starts to change. And we see that as a result of a very robust system in terms of cows and system, that actually we now have a huge focus on people. And that people focus is about employing and employing effectively. But what's really interesting when we look at a dairy business is that every dairy business understands how much work it takes to make good cows and good system, to have good cows and a good system. And yet there's kind of a misunderstanding that, well, if the third part of the pie is people, surely that requires work as well. But that's often misunderstood or forgotten. So it's an interesting challenge for farmers who understand the amount of work it took to get a good system and to have great cows. It's an interesting challenge for them to think of people as requiring as much work. There's often a bit of arrogance, I would see across dairy businesses. Well, we've got good cows, we've a good system, we're a great business, we have an entitlement to good staff. It doesn't work that way. There has to be work and effort put into that last part of the pie, and nobody's better placed to put work and effort into something than farmers, because they understand the payoff of putting in time and effort. There's also a potential misunderstanding that it is a learnable skill set when it comes to people management. So there's often a feeling of, oh, well, you're either good at it or you're not. It's kind of black magic. It's a dark art. I'm not great with people. That's the easy excuse. In truth, it's a learnable skill set, just like learning to be a very effective herdsman, learning to be a very effective system manager. It's about putting time and effort into becoming that good people manager, becoming that good employer. It doesn't happen overnight, just like the system and the cows didn't happen overnight. It requires quite an investment of thought and time. But there are a few hints and tips that can push you along on that journey. And I often think of that employment journey as being well represented by a triangle, as we have behind. And it's actually a 3-part triangle. So we're going to start off and think about what you need to do before you employ, what you do when you start employing, and then how you create that ongoing relationship. And it's not just about I've never employed somebody before, but actually taking on a new member of staff. Then you're still doing the before, the initial impression, and the after. So if we look at it here in terms of the triangle, when we get the base right of the triangle, it's going to make it much easier to build a big triangle. So we've got this pyramid here, and we start off with the idea of before. Now, thinking before you employ somebody, there are lots of things that that whole section is controllable. It's about putting time and effort into it. I know many, many great businesses, really genuinely decent people, but they haven't put the time in here, and so really struggle to retain staff, which for me is frustrating going into their business, because this is all the stuff they could actually control. When we start moving into first impressions and ongoing relationships, that's the more difficult stuff to control, because it's dependent on personalities and factors that are less tangible. But this section here, before you employ, is really, really tangible. And the kind of things it looks like is, being very, I'll just move that. So business awareness. Do you understand your business? What does your business need in terms of employment? Really getting your head around who's the right person for my business. If my business is here today and I need it to be somewhere else, in a year's time, what's the skills gap currently in my business? And hiring for that skills gap. So not just taking somebody who's available to you, but actually clearly understanding, well, what does my business actually need? Turns out my business needs somebody who's good at bookkeeping. It turns out my business needs somebody who is a unit manager. It might be that my business just needs somebody who's really solid, who can do one milking a day. So we just need somebody, when we look at it and we strip down the business, that actually a great solution, an interim solution or even a long-term solution would be just to have one extra member of staff who could maybe be reliable on morning milkings. So by being really business aware, we might find ourselves in a position that we don't need a full-time member of staff, that there are other ways to manage our system. It makes me really strip down and think about the business, and as a result, I'm going to make more solid and informed decisions. So we've got business awareness. We should also being very, very business aware. In addition to that, you've got things like your successful recruitment drive. You can only have a successful recruitment drive if you know who you need. Okay, now recruitment is about getting a large, people assume that you need loads and loads of people in your recruitment drive. It's nice to have loads of people in your recruitment drive. That's the number of potential people that you could recruit. But actually a very effective recruitment drive, it doesn't matter if there's only one person, because if you're doing it well, that one person is the correct person. So we shouldn't get hung up on, I have very few people coming my way. What we should be thinking about, not numbers, but actually the correct person coming your way. Now, what's interesting about that idea is that when you clearly know your business, you're in a position to spot what somebody has, even if they don't know they have it. So somebody comes your way interested in working for you, and because you know your business so well, you're in a position to offer something to them that they didn't think about when they came to your business in the first place. And you're in a position to maybe understand, well, okay, this person doesn't have all the skills I need, but I know what they need and I have time to train them up. So in addition to the successful recruitment, we need it to be timely. So we need a lot of time in the system. If I hire at the last minute, well, I'm going to take what I'm given, because I'm under pressure, I'm under stress already. So timely selection is really, really important. It may mean waiting longer than you want to, but I can assure you that your current members of staff would prefer to carry the weight of extra work being distributed across them than to have to carry a person who shouldn't be there. So if you're selecting or you're employing somebody who shouldn't be there, you're just employing them because they're available, you're actually rewarding that person and punishing the rest of your staff. Your staff would much prefer to work that bit harder and to carry the load than to carry the wrong person. So timing is a huge aspect of control. Are you bringing somebody in at the right time? If you were a block system, for example, block calving, are you bringing somebody in advance or at a quieter time of the year in order for them to be fully prepared and ready for the correct time of year? By loading this section, we are far more likely to get the next parts right. So the next one then is the initial impression. And that's going to look at having good rosters in place, role clarity, and of course, even though this is what your employee experiences, these would all be worked on from here. So actually there's a huge communication point between those two sections. You can't know your rosters or your clarity if you don't have great business awareness. And your rosters in terms of skill sets required at any one time, you won't have the right person in the right place if you're not thinking about if you're not thinking about the business requirements. So we've got a huge connection the whole way through the pyramid that allows you to be a better employer. We've got things here like fulfilling contractual obligations. So obligations here, part of your employment law and what you agree to. Are you paying people on time? Are they finishing work when you said they would finish work? Are you honouring their work breaks, etc.? And that's about taking having a huge understanding of employment law and regulation and compliance, and making that so that your business is structured and robust. No matter how nice an individual you are on in a one-to-one setting, if you are failing your staff on your compliance and your legal obligations, you are not seen as a nice person, regardless of the charm of your personality. So we need to be very mindful that putting our standards in place is going to really make a good first impression. That initial first impression where somebody comes into your business and you want them to stay, that really does happen very, very instantly in your business. It's within the first day an employee knows whether they're going to stay or not, or whether it's right for them, just as you know it's right, just as you would know if that person is right for your business. So we're loading this very much in order to create a stronger initial impression, and then we have an ongoing relationship. Now, if in your ongoing relationship where we have things like development, okay, so we might have progression in our business, or it might be progression in terms of skill acquisition. So we'd often hear that dairy lacks progression opportunities unless you're a multi-unit system. Well, that's a very hierarchical belief of progression. Progression can be the acquisition of skill. So I can't move you on to become a unit manager, but I can get you on a hoof training course, I can get you on a people management course, I can get you on a bookkeeping course. There's many ways to help somebody to progress. And think of progressing as investing in the asset and building their CV. If you're building your staff CV, you become a very, very attractive employer. Because if somebody leaves your gate better than they entered it, you become desirable to work for, because you're not seeing somebody as a cost, you're seeing them as an asset that you can invest in. So when we think about employment, we shouldn't make the mistake of thinking if my system is good and my cows are good, I'm entitled to good staff. What we should say is, it took me a long time to get my cows right, it took me a long time to get my system right. The third part of that pie is people. That's going to take a long time too, but that doesn't mean I should run away from it. What it means is you should invest good time. You should put as much emphasis into the preparation of bringing staff in before they ever come in the door, and they are totally controllable. By controlling the controllable, you will make a good initial impression. Somebody will walk into your business and say, this is a good business that I want to be part of. And by controlling the controllable before somebody comes into your business, creating a great initial impression and an ongoing relationship, you are going to really retain your staff and they'll want to work for you. And even if they're not staying with you, they're going to sell you as a good employer outside of the gate. So we would see that nowadays business have quite a high turnover. It's frustrating, yes, but it is the way the system is. So it's having a tolerance for high turnover with the intention of high retention. And so to retain staff, you need to do a lot of investment. And that investment doesn't stop just because you got them in the door. That is ongoing. That is about discipline. That is about knowing your system. And you're constantly cycling through that as you bring new staff members into your business. So think about it as the pyramid. Put a lot of work into the basis of it, or the triangle. By controlling the controllable, you really are setting yourself up much stronger for these two layers. But just like you don't forget about your cows, just like you don't forget about your system, you have to be constantly and continuously investing in your staff, thinking about your staff, thinking about them in relation to your business, as you do with your cows, as you do with your system. It should be a holistic approach that's taking the three sections, the three ideas working together in a really powerful triadic relationship. Thank you very much.